Hey, welcome back to episode 10. Yep, I remembered beforehand. I checked. Episode 10 of Cellarcast. I have been playing a lot of Quake recently, which you might have been able to tell from the last video on the channel, and it came out a day late because I ran into a bunch of very annoying problems regarding capturing the game. I was like, yeah, I'll play the the remaster. The remaster's really nice. It just opens up through Steam. And then apparently there is a problem with capturing it that I only realized after the fact, after going in twice to record, that when you Alt-Tab, so, I start up the game, then I Alt-Tab, open up OBS, or, tab over to OBS, I hit record, everything's good, I Alt-Tab back, and then the instant I do that, OBS starts hanging on the last frame before I Alt-Tabbed back to the game. And it stays on that, and I had like an hour of footage that was completely unusable, and I had to go back and re-record, which was really fun. And that happened twice, because I didn't realize what the problem was the first time. So that was really cool. But I've gotten some really nice feedback about that video. I just moved my mic a little bit because it was turned. It looks like it picked up. I don't know if it picked up. But I got some nice feedback on that. Thank you to everyone who enjoyed that. It was fun to make. I love talking about... I'm a huge id software nerd. You might have been able to tell. I own the book. I've read the book. Masters of Doom. If you haven't read Masters of Doom, I would highly recommend it. It's literally just the entire story of id Software from Romero and Carmack's childhood to I think it came out in 2004, so a little before Doom 3. And it's awesome. It's really great, and it's well written. It's well paced. If you have any interest in classic gaming or PC gaming, it is such a good read because it touches on all of these. It's crazy how such a small group of people touched so many different parts of the industry and changed it so much. So yeah, that's what I've been doing recently. There's a funny bug that I just discovered today. For some reason, it just popped up today with the Quake remaster. For some reason, I was going in and my movement, I was wobbling. It was really weird. I was just wobbling back and forth. It was all shaky and jittery, and I was like, what's going on? Because in a game like Quake where movement is a kind of a big deal and having control over your character is very important, and the game feels really good suddenly when you're it's like your character has vertigo or something. Little difficult, little not pleasant to control. So I looked it up. Apparently it is a bug that a couple people have found when you run on a monitor above 60 hertz, which is weird. My monitor is 144 hertz, so I was running into that, and I looked up. There was an article about it from 2 days ago or something, and there is a fix to it. And I was looking at all the steps that you can do to fix it, and I was like, yeah, I've got that. What am I missing? And then I get to the last one, and it's turn off VSync, and I'm like, oh god. So I go in, and VSync was on. I don't even know what VSync is. I just know that it causes problems. Anyway, you have a little comment review from last episode. So first one comes to us from Lozy, again, who informed me of the Silent Hill PC versions, the classic PC versions. Also, apparently, Silent Hill 2 does not have the same protagonist as 1. I thought it did. They looked similar from the outset. They looked like Caucasian guys with short brown hair and a jacket, and I was like, oh, it's the same guy. Okay. So I did a little looking into, because he outlined a couple problems that it has running, that the PC versions have running on modern hardware, and so I actually looked it up, and there is a mod for that for at least Silent Hill 2 that basically fixes all of those issues, which is actually pretty sick, and I am curious in working some magic to secure a copy. Yeah, oh yeah, so it's the director's cut, which is interesting that they would release the director's cut on PC. He says it's the best version of the game. Has an extra episode for some context to one of the characters, if I remember correctly. SH3 and SH4 have no problems in their classic versions for PC. Yep. Never finished Blood. The character would get stuck when those hands started to appear, like in the Addams Family. I was very young, so I gave up. Yeah, Blood is... That's interesting, though, that there would be like a... I don't know what problem... I don't know, PC games always had problems. Before Steam, PC games always ran into problems. So he talks a little bit about... into the real question of his comment. He says, talking about classic FPSs, I have a dream trailer. Oh boy. Well, it's creative writing time. First person view. Someone's talking about a mission. Protagonist jumps out of the helicopter. The parachute opens, and just as he is about to hit the sandy ground, rock music plays. It's a familiar melody. Enemies throw swords at you. You save a prisoner. He says thank you, and a letter falls from his rags. A voice says, heavy machine gun. And the shooting continues. Metal Slug. I always think it would be a good franchise to explore in the FPS genre. What do you think? Do you have any franchises that you would like to see in that genre, or do you have some forgotten that you like? Greetings. Greetings. Yeah. I was really tempted to read. Whenever I think of, like, the Metal Slug power-ups, I always think of Korone Inugami. There's a video of her, she streamed herself playing Metal Slug, and just go look up, there's a video of Korone. If you just look up Korone Metal Slug, you'll get the, it's like every time she pronounces a weapon in English. Happy machine gun! Super machine, rocket launcher, yeah! Whoa, whoa, whoa! God, I wish that, it would be great if there was like a mod for Metal Slug. I'd almost be surprised if there wasn't. If there was a mod for Metal Slug that replaced the voice lines with her saying the weapon names, that would be hilarious. Anyway, yeah. I was thinking about this question because it's an interesting one. Because you don't see many... there's certain genres that are more common for crossovers. Obviously, fighting games are one. Now I guess battle royales, like cameos and stuff. What else? I guess like weird like gacha games, like mobile games and stuff like that. FPSs are not usually a genre where you see taking an existing property and making it into an FPS, right? Card games, that's another one. You don't usually see FPSs based on existing franchises. It's much less common. And it might just be because there isn't as much of a precedent for it. But I mean, like, you know, Metroid Prime is great. There's a bunch of good fan games. If you like Mega Man, I think you should probably check out Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch. It's basically multiplayer Doom with Mega Man weapons. Like, literally every single... It actually has a ton of effort put into it. It's a wonderful mod. It's 8-Bit Deathmatch is like literally every single weapon from Mega Man's 1 through, I think they got up to 10. Basically just as a weapon in an FPS setting, and it's really fun. As for franchises I would like to see, I was thinking about it, and I was really curious because I was like, what would make sense? Because Metal Slug actually does make a lot of sense. I think a Metal Slug FPS could be cool if you... The only thing I would really want is like... like they would have to get right, I think, is because Metal Slug has such good sprite work and has such gorgeous graphics. I think that if you could do something like if you've ever played Project Warlock, something like that with like really nice high-res pixel art but in like a 3D FPS setting, something like that, just to preserve that visual style and not be like just kind of a generic brown military shooter. That's what I would want. And just like to keep all that energy that's in the animation. I would love to see, it came to me and I had this like idea, I would love to see like a first person bullet hell game. Like I'm actually a big fan of, I don't know if I've talked about it a ton, but I'm a big fan of Toho, the bullet hell series. And I think I've only mentioned it really like once on my channel, but yeah, I'm a fan of it. The wallpaper on my computer, which shows up in a few videos, is Sakuya from Toho. And then I have I own like 6 Toho figures that are on the shelf behind me. I think that like I think about like the really intense gameplay of certain FPSs, and then I think about that same kind of intensity in bullet hells, and I want to see some kind of, you know, merging of them. You wouldn't be able to do it just because of the perspective. You wouldn't be able to just one-to-one make a bullet hell and then put you in a first-person view, because that would be like a mess. That would be a nightmare, because you wouldn't be able to see the entire screen. But I think you could definitely do the same kind of like really tight spatial movement and constant shooting and tension in a first-person setting. Maybe if you like this, I looked it up and there are a couple, there's like 2 that I was able to find of games that actually build themselves as first-person bullet hells, and they kind of did it by, let me just look up first-person bullet hell. Mother Gun Ship was one of them. The other one was like Tower of Guns or something? Yes, Tower of Guns. Mother Gun Ship. That is a really cool game. It's also kind of a, if I remember correctly, kind of roguelike elements in that it has like randomly generated layouts. But yeah, I think the concept could go really far. I think that could be really cool. It wouldn't have to be specifically Toho, it could be something else, but I want that kind of gameplay in a first person setting. I think like to use the buzzword, the immersion would go really far. I think that would be super cool. So yeah, I would love to see a bullet hell FPS in some kind of way. I mean, Nier, if you think about it, Nier, which is, you know, a third-person action game, but it has a ton of bullet hell elements. I was almost shocked by it. I was especially in like all the flying sections, a lot of like the bits where it goes into an overhead view, and I'm like, these are just bullet hell patterns, but not as hard, which is fine for me. So you can definitely like take hallmarks of bullet hells and kind of like, you know, form them into other genres. It's totally possible, and I think it would be sick. Second question comes from Max C, who asks, did you pick up some Atari tokens? Its price is quite low now, below 0.6. So I actually looked it up, because I just thought that Atari token was the funniest thing I've heard in a while. And I looked it up. I don't know. I'm straight up, I don't know anything about cryptocurrency. So one of the first links was cointobuy.io, which is like, it just shows a bunch of data on various cryptocurrency coins. And Atari token, their analysis has a whopping 3.2 out of 10 on the safety meter. Markets 0. Volume ratio 0. Market cap like 95%. 24-hour change like 50%. Social following like 60%. Google Trends like 10%. Twitter citation like 20%. And then user voting looks like around 40% or 30 more like. Yeah, it's shocker. A cryptocurrency came out and it was not great. I might honestly buy some just as a gag because, I mean, let's see, Atari token investment price. It looks like one is worth, if I'm reading this correctly, one is worth $0.055513. So, I could drop $5 and be an Atari coin millionaire. And, you know, hey, maybe Atari hotels are going to come. Maybe it's going to hit the big time, and, you know, I am going to one. Oh, man. What if I get there and it's like, there's like special things for people who own Atari coin? Like, what if I get a discount? If it's like integrated, maybe like the value of my Atari coin. If the hotels are a big success, the value of my Atari coin's going to go up. I'm going to be making videos shilling for Atari hotels so that I can become an Atari coin, like the Elon Musk of Atari coin. I'm going to manipulate the market so that I can sell off all my ATRI. That sounds fun. I might legitimately buy some for a joke. Thank you for commenting. The first story that I wanted to talk about was just a funny little thing from Silicon Era. Just a short little story. So the Devil May Cry stylish combat was the result of an Onimusha bug. That's the title of the article. It's written by Kazuma Hashimoto. So basically, it's just a story that Hideki Kamiya told on Twitter, just a short little thing for the 20th anniversary of DMC. And he said that the kind of like trademark combat of the series was inspired by this bug that was happening in Onimusha, which was in development at the same time on a different like floor of the company. And basically, the bug was sometimes you would hit an enemy and the enemy would fly into the air. And Kamiya, he saw that and he was like, hey, you know, obviously it wasn't intentional for Onimusha and they fixed it, but he looked at it and he was like, hey, that looks really cool. Like, that's obviously not what they want, but the idea of like launching an enemy into the air and then being able to like what if you could like hit them in the air and like juggle them, do all this cool stuff. And it just so happened that let's see, the programmer, so one of the lead programmers, Kazunori Inoue, he sounds so familiar. I'll have to double check what he worked on. Happened to be working on a system for basically like an auto-targeting system for combat that was focused around guns. So like auto-targeting with guns. And they were like, hey, what if you combined this thing and it just, you know, putting 2 and 2 together, launch an enemy into the air, and then like swap to like guns and then juggle them with like these bullet attacks, and then you do it and implement it in the game, and it's awesome. Kazunori Inoue. Oh, that is so familiar. I have to look that up. Inoue. Video game credits. Yeah. Astral Chain. Oh boy, he's on Nier Automata. Yeah, he's on a bunch of shit. Bayonetta 2, Resident Evil 4, HD, Anarchy Reigns, DMC HD, Vanquish, original Bayonetta, original Resi 4, God Hand, Beautiful Joe, Resident Evil, DMC, basically the first 4 Resident Evils. I don't know why I specifically remember him, because he's a programmer? Anyway, maybe it's just someone else that I remember. Kazunori Inoue doesn't sound like a super uncommon name. In Japan, at least. Like, it's not... Doesn't sound too crazy. So I took a shower right before I recorded this, and as part of showering, I brushed my teeth. So I was done, and every time I brush my teeth, I get dehydrated. But then I have the mint aftertaste, which kills all of the sugar receptors in my tongue, which means that everything's really bitter. So I'm thirsty, but I have to drink tea. It's fine. I can drink kind of bitter tea. Every time I go to a restaurant, I noticed I had this problem where if I went to a restaurant and I ordered a drink, I would just, like when I was a kid, I would just mindlessly sip on it just continuously, and then by the time my food came, I was full because I just drank like an entire like glass of whatever. So what I started doing was around the time I was like 12 or something, 11 or 12, I just started ordering only iced tea and then sometimes adding sugar to it. Usually, I used to add sugar to it every time and then like stir it, but it takes really long to actually stir it into the tea. So it's basically to disincentivize myself from just mindlessly drinking before my food gets there. And now, honestly, nowadays I'm too lazy to even put the sugar in or the sweetener or whatever. So I just drink it bitter, and it actually works out fine. I just kind of I got used to the taste, and it keeps me from over drinking, I guess, on my tea. I have that habit where, like, if I'm distracted by something, I will just mindlessly, if I have a snack or a drink, I'll just mindlessly, subconsciously just go at it without even thinking about it. So I have to kind of set up little things to prevent me from spoiling myself. Interesting story here. This surprised me, and it's quite curious. I'll just get into it. It comes from gamesindustry.biz, the only relevant .biz website left. Apple will allow developers to promote alternative payments outside of their apps. Subheading: a $100 million fund has been launched. All right, this one comes from Christopher Dring. That's a great name, Dring. So basically, Apple made an announcement that if you are a developer on the App Store and you want to point your users to an alternative method of paying, an alternate stream of paying that is not directly through the App Store, you are allowed to do that. So basically, the iPhone giant will now allow developers to promote alternative payment options for its apps to customers. That means that studios of all sizes can now send emails to its customers telling them they can pay for subscriptions or in-game items through their website at a reduced cost, circumventing the need to pay Apple its commission. And then, of course, you have to, emailing. There's rules about emailing. It has to be opt-in, blah, blah, blah. You can opt out. So basically, this is not a result of the Epic lawsuit that is happening right now. It just happens to intersect with it. Basically, they had a class action lawsuit from some smaller US developers from 2019, and this is one of their agreements to that lawsuit. So it almost makes me wonder... Whoa. I don't know where all that air came from. Almost makes me wonder, Are they just going to drop the Epic trial? I don't think they will. Like, they're way too deep into it. But I would be... The Epic trial has now gotten more interesting because basically there's no problem now. The entire... obviously, like, you can't drop the lawsuit because at the time that Epic did what they did, that was against Apple's rules, and so that still stands, and they have to... I think they should at least still respect that. But in terms of a settlement, Epic might actually just win out in this case and get exactly what they want. So as part of this agreement, Apple says it will also launch a $100 million small business fund to assist small developers. Companies eligible for the fund must have earned $1 million or less through the U.S. storefront from all their apps in every calendar year between 2015 and 2021. So they have some criteria for who counts as small developer. Only available to U.S. developers because it's a U.S. lawsuit. But the firm says it is thinking about developing a similar fund for developers in other markets. Other concessions that Apple has made in the lawsuit include they're going to maintain this program for the next 3 years. This is where businesses... that's actually a different thing. They're going to have a separate program, the App Store Small Business Program, where businesses earning less than $1 million annually will pay a reduced commission. That's very nice. Apple will ensure its search results continue to be based on objective characteristics such as downloads, star ratings, text relevance, and user behavior signals for at least the next 3 years. That's a weird one because it's like... was it not already? Maybe it wasn't. I don't use the App Store, so maybe it's this is a point of contention, or there's evidence that they manipulated in some way. I don't know. Apple will expand the number of price points for subscriptions, in-app purchases, and paid apps from fewer than 100 to more than 500. Okay. Apple will continue to allow developers to appeal the rejection of an app based on what it believed to be unfair treatment, and they'll add content to the app review website so that developers can better understand the appeals process. And then lastly, publish a meaningful statistics about the app review process as part of a transparency report. Okay, so all of this is actually pretty good. It seems like Apple is being pretty reasonable with their concessions here. Obviously, helping out smaller developers is always nice. I don't know how, just on surface value, as someone who is not in game dev, who is very far away from mobile game dev, I have no idea if this is actually helpful or if it's just, kind of a show. But on the surface level, it seems good. It seems being a mobile app developer has got to be kind of tough in a lot of ways, because when you publish on a platform like Steam, you also there's so much choice and there's just such an ocean of content available that it's easy to get drowned out. But I think that in the mobile space you have kind of the added difficulty of the fact that people don't really talk that much about mobile games. It's kind of considered because so much a lot of discussions and say you make a game that has a niche appeal or a niche market, most of the time that market, the fans of those types of games are going to be congregating on platforms like Reddit or things that are more desktop oriented, and so it's much easier to talk about. It is much more convenient to talk about a PC game when you're already on a PC and you're using that most of the time. Diablo Immortal was announced, and there was a huge hubbub about the fact that it was mobile only. People were legitimately upset about that. And the reason for that is because you're talking to a crowd of PC gamers who don't really want to play a game on phones. So, you sort of run into this problem where a lot of the avenues that you can go to kind of get more attention aren't as there isn't as much of like an easy path from mobile to like from the mobile app store to my brain is sputtering, what the hell, from the mobile app store to like internet forums, right? Maybe Twitter, right? Maybe but going from a platform you're already on to talking about man, my words are bad right now. I feel like I'm trying to express like the same idea multiple times until I get it right. I hope it's what I'm trying to express has come across at all. I've been explaining this very poorly. Basically, the markets are different, is what I'm trying to say. The markets and the discussion groups are different, and I'm sure that there's lots and lots of mobile games that are really good that just kind of get drowned out because it isn't as easy to discuss them as something like Hades, or something like that, or even like a smaller game. Like if I look at just the front page of Steam, let's see, new and trending. What the fuck is this? Seed of the Dead, Sweet Home, action shooter visual novel FPS. Oh no, this is a porn game. It's wait, what is this? This looks like it was made in Gmod. What the heck? There's like anime girls and zombies? The anime girls look like anime girls and the zombies look like they're from Left 4 Dead. And the UI looks like kind of amateurish. Slaughter the ghouls to save the girls. Build up your love nest and woo 4 heroines as you fight. Dude, there's a picture on the Steam page of like one of these anime girls being like put to the ground by a zombie, and the complete disconnect in art styles is astonishing. She has like mild cell shading and like anime proportions, on her like face and other parts, and the zombie is just a realistic like Walking Dead, Left 4 Dead zombie. Woo 4 heroines as you fight to survive a ruined zombie hellscape. A one-of-a-kind post-apocalyptic, for some reason post is capitalized, but apocalyptic is not, FPS dating sim game filled with intense zombie-killing action and lusty romance. Published by Arrowgay Japan. Wonderful. Why are there so many of these types of games? It's easier to talk about that. Is Psychonauts 2 already out yet? Holy cannoli, when did that happen? August 24th. Oh my god, it was like this week. I'm not on top of things. I'm never up to date. Let's move on to the next story. Wait, which one do I want to go to next? Was there an easy jumping? I feel like there was an easy jumping off point. Nope. Alright, so if you remember way back several episodes ago, I said something, there was a story about how Minecraft was essentially rated adults only in South Korea. And that had to do with the curfew that they enforce on games to keep the kiddies from staying up all night playing the Fortnites and the Amoguses. And this caused outrage from the Korean gaming community, who they drew their line, they put their foot down, and they said, even Minecraft? Really? Even Minecraft? I think they wrote like an open letter to the government or something. Well, from the Korea Herald, Korea to axe games curfew. That's right, guys. The South Korean government is to abolish the controversial shutdown law, lifting the curfew that blocks access to online games by underage users late at night 10 years after the law came into force. So the Ministry of Culture, Sports, and Tourism and the Ministry of Gender, Equality, and Family. Okay. I guess the family part is where that comes from, where they get involved with this. Announced the decision Wednesday, saying they will scrap the shutdown law out of respect for the rights of youths and encourage education at home. Underage gamers will be protected from excessive gaming through the existing choice system. The choice permit system, introduced in 2012, allows underage gamers or their parents to designate hours for playing games. Wow. Almost like what they just should have done from the beginning. Having an enforced government, basically, it's always kind of a bad idea, I think, to have the government take over the role of a parent. I think that at some point you just gotta parent your kids. I'm sorry, but you gotta do it. You can't just let the government do it for you and just, legislate everything so that you don't have to teach your kids how to act. So I'm not for a enforced games curfew. However, things like parental controls, sure, good. Of course parents can misuse them. But I feel like they should have the ability to work out with their kids what's appropriate for them to play, when it's appropriate for them to play, and having good parental controls is just kind of a part of that whole package of not telling people what they need to do, but giving them the ability to choose. And I think, parents should have the ability to say, no, you can't be on your phone past 10 p.m. You got to go to school. You got to go to school in the morning. I think that's perfectly reasonable. Even if it's like annoying. But I feel like it's one of those things that you look back on and you're like, yeah, that was probably for the best. So yeah, this is overall a good thing. So according to the Culture Ministry, the utilization rate for the choice system, so these parental controls, for 40 games by 7 game companies ranges from 1% to 28%. So it looks like, anywhere from no one to about a third of people use them. While gamers had to request a permit for each game in the past, the Game Culture Foundation, under the Culture Ministry, will now take charge of the entire application process. Youngsters without parents can have legal guardians, teachers, or social workers request permits for them. This is a little weird. This is where it gets a little weird. So, you do have to... It's a little more intense than parental controls. It's like... Well, I think that, to do a lot of things in Korea, you'd have to, supply your government ID. I'm not into that, but it's just kind of how they work. And so I guess you can have, yes, you are allowed to play Fortnite after 10 p.m. The shutdown law requires gaming companies to block access to games by users aged 16 or younger between midnight and 6 a.m. However, some foreign game companies have failed to change their systems to reflect Korean law. Which was the main thing was Minecraft, which this article goes on to reference. Basically because what tipped this off was Minecraft. Let's see, what exactly was it? After Microsoft bought Minecraft, there were two ways to log in, either with your Minecraft account, either with your Mojang account or your Microsoft account. And the Mojang account did not have this requirement. It didn't have the shutdown built in. However, the Microsoft account did. But now, people's Mojang accounts, they've started converting them into Microsoft accounts recently, which means that some people no longer have the ability to subvert the law, and they were outraged about this. So under the law, game companies can be fined up to... Holy crap. Oh, okay. I read this line and it freaked me out. Under the law, game companies... So this is the shutdown law. So under the law, game companies can be fined up to 10 million... Whoa. 10 million won, which is about $8,560. Okay. Or face up to 2 years behind bars if they offer game services to underage users during curfew hours. According to the government announcement, China is the only other country where the government restricts gaming hours. Yeah, that's pretty intense. Like, okay, $8,000 or $8,500. That's pretty light. 2 years behind bars? That's kind of intense. I feel like those punishments are not quite proportional to each other. It's also really funny that it kind of treats games like drugs, or like alcohol. Can I see your ID? You're gonna need an ID for Minecraft, mister. So basically, instead of looks like in general, though, the South Korean government is looking to relax their policies on enforcing how people are able to play games, and supposedly focusing on strengthening. So they're changing the law so that you can apply for a permission, which I think is just, it is a little more draconian than I'd like, but it's just part of their culture, I guess. The whole ID system. The other thing is strengthening education on gaming. It will expand its gaming culture and media literacy outreach programs. The educational reform slated for 2022 will include content on excessive gaming. It will produce a 10-minute video clip on game guidelines that parents, guardians, and teachers can refer to when conflicts related to gaming surface. I do laugh at it because it is kind of funny. However, it is the right thing. It's really easy to look at, people talk about gaming addiction and stuff like that, and it's really easy to look at that argument and be like, you're just a bunch of pearl clutchers. And honestly, I think a lot of the time they are when they're getting freaked out about it. I mean, we talked about an article... No, we didn't. There's a recent story about gaming addiction that ran in, the Telegraph, I think. And the thing is that gaming addiction is real. It is a real thing, I think that I could say that I was definitely addicted to League of Legends for a while. I think I really was. And I would come home, I would play League, and I was at that point, this was when I was in middle school, I was in this point where, it was really the only game I was playing And even when I didn't enjoy it, I would still play it. And there was a point where I remember there was this weird bug with the client, and there's always a bug with the League client. It kind of has historically sucked, but there was a weird bug where it would freeze on the login screen, and I just couldn't log into the game for like a month because I had no idea how to fix this problem. And I went through like it sounds really dumb to say this, but like legitimate withdrawal symptoms where like I was nervous, I was anxious, I was like, oh, I can't play League, oh, I gotta play League. And it sounds like really stupid, and I almost feel embarrassed saying it, but it was like a real thing that I went through. And like one of my friends, I was like, I don't know, I feel really like on edge because I haven't been able to play League in like a week. And my friend was like, or 2 weeks or something, and my friend was like, you sound like you're addicted. And I was like, I'm not. No, I'm not. I like rationalized it, and I was like, no, it's like I enjoy it, and when I don't get to have it, then, you know, I don't have this thing in my, you know, my daily routine, my daily life. And now in retrospect, I can look back on it and be like, yeah, I had like a problem. To some degree. It didn't like, I guess it was like a functional addiction because it never affected, I'm playing with magnets if you can hear that. It was definitely like a functional addiction. I have a history of addiction in my family, so it doesn't really surprise me. Another reason why I have to be careful about, you know, I'll just mindlessly drink away at something if I'm presented with it. I was definitely like a function, like it didn't impede my life in any real way besides the fact that I had to play League of Legends. But in retrospect, like, okay, nothing bad happened. I didn't have any problems with my family. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it was really interesting because gaming addiction is one of those things. Obviously, it can be really bad. But I remember the YouTuber streamer Maximilian Dude. He had a video. It was taken from his stream where he was just kind of talking. He was reminiscing about Final Fantasy XI. And you can go look up the video. I would highly recommend watching it. It's really fascinating, actually. And he's basically talking about when Final Fantasy XI came out, and he was at this point in his life where he had kind of like a shitty job. He didn't really enjoy what he was doing. And this game came out. He got super invested. It's an MMO, so it's easy to invest. He put all this time into it, and it kind of became the only thing he woke up for in the morning. Where, like, he wouldn't have woken up to go to work, right? But he woke up so that once he came home from work, he could play FF11 and do something, you know, whatever he did, whatever he was going to do. That was how he got fulfillment. That was the role that game played in his life. And the problem is that games and pieces of media aren't supposed to fill. There's voids in your life that entertainment cannot fill. And games cannot fill movies, shows, books, music even. Music's a little different. I think music's kind of special in some ways, but there's places where like music cannot fill the void in your soul. It will not make up for whatever is missing. And these are not products that are meant to be replacements for things that are missing in your life. But he was using Final Fantasy XI like that. And this video is so interesting. It's really great. Because while he's talking about it, he basically just starts off by like reminiscing about the game, And he's having a pleasant time, just going down memory lane, talking to his chat about it. And then he starts talking about like this whole situation, this point in his life he was at. And he has this really interesting moment where he stops and he's like, I've never really thought about it before, but now that I'm thinking about it, I think I was addicted to that game. Like, I think I was legitimately addicted to Final Fantasy XI. And he just has this kind of revelation where he'd never really thought about that point in his life before in that way. And now just kind of reflecting back on it with, how far he's come and how much healthier he is now as a person. He's got a wife. That was before he had his first kid, but he has a kid now. He's very successful. He gets to do what he loves. He's super involved in a genre of games that he's so passionate about, fighting games. He's really like living his dream. And now with that perspective, he was able to like look back on that point and be like, man, I really had like a problem. And that game was what I used to make up for it. And that video, I remember when I watched it for the first time, I reflected myself on my time with League. And that was the first time that I really realized that I had sort of a problem. It wasn't impeding my life, right? Again. But I did have like an over-reliance on it. It was too central. It was much more central to my life than it should have been. Is what I'll say. And I'm talking someone who fucking loves video games. I have this whole channel. I'm recording a podcast about video games. I love video games, and they're very core to my life and my person and who I am. But there's a level of priorities, right? Where you gotta move some stuff away, and you gotta say, okay, this stuff is valuable to me, but it's not all me, right? It's not at the center. It's not what I'm gonna wake up to do. Like, I want to wake up and I want to be able to make things, and I want to be able to see people and talk to my friends and see my most of my family. And to be nice to people and help people and enjoy things. Like, that's what I want to wake up for. And gaming, just like music and stuff like that, has its place in that arrangement of things of my lifestyle, but it's not the number one, and it shouldn't be. So like, gaming addiction is I was talking about gaming, yeah. this curfew thing. It's a real thing, and I remember having this own epiphany on my own, and I realize that I was probably pretty lucky, because basically what happened was that the reason I kind of fell out of League was that I just went into high school and I was just way too busy. And I was just too busy to play. I would go... My whole experience throughout high school was... I would go to school. I got up really early. I had 7 a.m. jazz class. I would go to school. I would come home. I'd be exhausted just from exposure to people. I would usually take a nap for a few hours. I'd wake up. I'd do my homework. I would wake up. I would waste time, and then I'd do my homework. Finish at like 2 a.m. Go back to sleep for a few hours. Wake up at like. Some days I woke up. I had to wake up at like 5:10 to catch the bus. Some days I had to wake up at 6. It was very unstable. And I just literally didn't have the time or the willpower. I would think about playing League and I'd be like, man, I just don't have the energy, and I would just go sleep. I would just go sleep. And eventually that kind of just, once you do that for a few months, you sort of realize, like, I just kind of weaned myself off of it because other stuff took precedence, basically forced itself to take precedence over League of Legends in my life. Whereas before, like when I was in middle school was a freaking cakewalk, and high school wasn't that difficult for me. It was just more time consuming and exhausting. It was much more tedious in general. And so it just kind of forced its way to the front of my schedule. Okay, fuck. I had a mini panic attack that I was not recording through my microphone, and I was recording through, like, my webcam mic. That was terrifying. Ooh, no, we're good. We're gonna... Okay. Sorry if that hurt your ears. Me tapping on it. I just had to check. Okay. What the hell was I talking about? Right, yeah. And, you know, once you go a few months without playing the game, you're like, I think I'm okay. Like, I think I'm okay with not playing the game. And I can legitimately say that quitting League made my life better. Which sounds like a joke, and in a way it is, but in a way it's also very serious, because there's this weird phenomenon with playing League of Legends that you'll notice when you meet people who play League, and they only play League. That's the only game they play. It's the only game they watch. And it's just like, more. This is the only game that I can have in my life. And maybe one every now and again they'll play like a single player game. They'll play a Dark Souls or a GTA or a Red Dead or something like that. For the most part, it's all League, baby. And once I quit League, it was like my horizons really broadened. And when you care about gaming and you love gaming as much as I do, only playing one game really does a disservice to yourself. And once I was able to, like, branch out and check out, like, there were genres that I never thought I would like, that it turns out, oh shit, I thought I played Pokemon when I was 10. I thought it was bad. I just thought, I was like, I don't like JRPGs, and then on a whim I played Final Fantasy VI, and now it's one of my favorite games of all time. It was like, holy shit, there's this amazing friggin' game, and there's this entire genre that I've just never explored before that's open to me. And then Final Fantasy led me to Dissidia, which was the first fighting game I ever really fell in love with. And then Dissidia led me to games like Skullgirls and Guilty Gear. And, you know, now I'm here and I just fucking talk about Guilty Gear all the time. And fighting games are like one of the closest genres to my heart that have been like so it was so crazy, because it was like, how many times when I play League do I actually have a good time? And it was like, not that many, like maybe 5 out of 10 times. Every time I boot up plus R, I have a good time. Maybe not every time, maybe like 8 or 9 out of 10. Some days I have a bad session, and it has more to do with just my mindset going in. But like, oh my god, I have so many incredible memories attached to fighting games. Of just like, and I don't even like really play with friends or anything. It's a genre that I don't have to play it with friends. Like, everyone says like, oh, League is only fun if you play it with friends. I don't have to play fighting games with friends to enjoy it. They are really fun with friends. But I can just go on and I can have all of these like, I have so many just wonderful golden memories of experiences I've had playing games that I really cared about. And I always had, there's something so special about like going online and finding someone who is like way better than you. And you're like, holy shit, this guy's so much better than me at the game. And then you just like, fighting game players are like really good sports, honestly, most of the time. Like, there's this like anxiety people have about like, oh, I don't want to play good players because I don't want to waste their time. No one thinks that. That never happens. That's a very small amount of people who will actually like be like that. High level players love playing against people below them because you get to like test out combos, you get to experiment with stuff, you get to kind of take it easy. And honestly, as someone who is kind of at like an intermediate level in fighting games, where to the point where like I can play against someone and identify that they are less good than me, you know, not in any kind of like elitist way, but just like, you know, this person is not as experienced with me as me, they're not as comfortable on the character or with the matchup. Playing against someone like that is fun because you get to like, I'll go online, for instance, right? I'll find someone who's so much better than me, and you'll just run it back, and you'll just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing and keep playing, and then you get like one game on them out of like 30 or 40. You play for like an hour against this one dude, and you get one game, and you feel like the fucking king of the world, and you're like, oh shit, everything was worth it. Everything, every single loss was worth it. I feel like a fucking god. And then once I get to the, I'll play someone who I'm like, okay, I'm in the position where I'm better than this person at the game, and that's just the way that it is. I'm winning every game, but they just keep rematching and they keep rematching, and we keep playing, and you get to see them improve at the matchup, and you get to see them improve at the game, and it's like, oh shit, now I'm that person. Now I'm that person, and I'm giving this guy like his own special experience. I'm like, oh, I'm almost tearing up. I'm like legitimately fucking tearing up talking about this, because like, I fucking love fighting games, dude. And it's this experience that I never would have gotten if I just played League of Legends for 10 fucking years. Which is around how long I would have been playing it. Maybe about 10 years. Started playing in like 2014. Like start of 2014, so by this point it would be like... Hang on, I'm bad at math. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21... 8 years. If I just played one game for 8 years, it's like I'm doing such a disservice to myself by just sticking to one game in one genre that I'm not even having fun in. And just this like perspective that I can look back on it now with is, I don't know, it's so gratifying. Like when you just start playing a bunch of different games in a bunch of different genres, I'm like, oh man, I thought that I just didn't like first-person shooters. No, I actually love Doom. Doom's awesome. What? I don't know. What are some other genres that I got into just because of like on a whim? Bullet hells. I was like, bullet hells seem kind of interesting. I like hard games. I'll try those out. Oh, I love Toho. That's awesome. And now I get into Toho. There's all of this amazing music in Toho. Whoa, I'm finding all these artists who do these arrangements of Toho music. Jeez, this is awesome. Once you just start like branching out and expanding your horizons into different genres and different mediums and different styles, it's like your life legitimately gets so much better because you just get... It's so much more fun. It's so much more enjoyable once you realize that there's way more stuff out there that you like than you don't. And I'm someone who looks at a ton of stuff and is like, it's not for me. And there's still so many things that I find out every day that I just like, wow, I never realized I would have loved this. I'm so glad that I'm doing it now. There's a guy on my friends list who is currently playing Space War. let's just say, he's running it back. Maybe he saw my video and he's prepping for the Space War Olympics 2, which is what I'm going to call it. I'm totally going to call it the Space War Olympics 2. I'm going to call it like SO2 or something when we do the tournament, because it's going to happen, baby. I believe. Oh man. Oh man, I think all that was just from talking about Korea lifting the games curfew. Yeah, if I had to say anything, is that variety is great. Don't be afraid to go outside of your comfort zone. Find some low risk investments, emulation, Steam sales, whatever, to find out what you like. And you never know, you might just find a series that you're going to fall in love with out of it. So, next topic. I was not aware of this, but the Overwatch character McCree was apparently named after a real employee of Blizzard named... was his like actual name? The character's full name is Jesse McCree. Jesse McCree, Blizzard. I guess his full name is. Yeah, Jesse McCree is like his real name. So McCree, the cowboy character from Overwatch, was named after a real dev who was. Let's just say he was in the Cosby Suite picture. And Blizzard basically said, now that they are... Basically, they got exposed for being a bunch of scumfucks. They are changing the name of the character in Overwatch to something else. So they released a statement, one of these classic, got the logo at the top, a couple paragraphs of text, statement signed the Overwatch team. So we built the Overwatch universe around the idea that inclusivity, equity, and hope are the building blocks. I don't even feel like reading this. Yeah, basically they're like, they want to distance themselves from the McCree name, which is perfectly reasonable. And there's a pushback to it, which is also reasonable, which is like, okay, a lot of people didn't even know that he was named after a real employee. A lot of people just assumed that, if anything, it was named after Mad Dog McCree? Is that yeah. Which was... There's a video game. Was that based on a real person? I feel it. It's like a Laserdisc point-and-click weird shooter for the... is it an arcade game? Yeah. Mad Dog McCree. Was it based on anything? Mad Dog McCree almost sounds like it was like a classic Western or something like that. Or maybe it's just... Maybe the game is actually just hitting... The title's just too good. Anyway, a lot of people assumed it was a reference to, like, also just, you're Jesse McCree, and you're like, that just sounds like a cowboy. If he was named, like, Greg Smith, you'd be like, that's the cowboy guy? A lot of people didn't even know that there was a connection. However, honestly, naming in-game characters after, like, significant characters after real people is kind of dicey, and they've said that they're going to stop doing that, which I think is a good idea, because it just creates future problems. It can be really cool and nice, but it can also create uncomfortable situations where your cowboy in Overwatch... Oh, I just fucking, like... My jaw moved weirdly, and, like, my back teeth just collided with my... Or my bottom teeth just collided with my front teeth, and that was really uncomfortable. Alright, anyway. These weird situations where, like, oh, that character from this game is also named after someone who was implicated in sexual harassment, a really horrific sexual harassment culture. And it's honestly understandable that they might want to distance themselves from it. And I actually kind of respect them if they say, okay, no more characters named after real people. We're going to draw the line in the sand, and we're going to change every single person who is named after, every single character named after a real person. We're going to change it. We're going to have zero tolerance. We're going to commit to that. I would actually respect that, because it's actually, what I hate is this kind of like wishy-washy, oh, we're changing this because people are mad about it. Oh, please don't notice this other thing. If you want to say no, put in the foot down. It ends today. And we're going and we're going to change everything. I actually do respect that. What I think is lame is putting out a freaking press release for every single little thing you change. Okay, here's the thing. I actually agree with changing McCree's name. I think it's perfectly understandable. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but I think that's what it is. It's my opinion of it. What I would have done is, don't put out a press release saying that you're going to change McCree's name. You can put out a press release saying maybe, don't even do it. Don't even do it, because it's just lame. Speak with your actions instead of your words, just for once, please. And then just silently, quietly change all the minor NPCs that are named after real people. And here's what you do with McCree. So here's the thing. McCree is a cowboy. McCree is an outlaw. There's the point that's been raised that Jesse McCree probably isn't even his real name. Like, if they were to come out with an Overwatch comic and they said, oh yeah, McCree is just like a fake name that he uses to, evade, it's one of several pseudonyms he uses, you wouldn't even bat an eye. You'd be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Overwatch 2's coming out. Part of that, have a storyline with McCree's character where he changes his name. Because there's a perfect opportunity, because in storytelling, there's kind of like a significance and a symbolism to changing your name, to choosing a name. There's or going back to returning to your original name, because that's how you choose to identify yourself. Your name is a big part of your identity in a way, because it's kind of like a collection of all of these traits. So like when a character in something renames themselves, they take up a new name, it's like, okay, this represents a turning point in their life, where they're turning a new leaf, they're a new person. And as a character who's an outlaw, I don't really know anything about McCree's lore or his backstory besides that he's a criminal cowboy man who goes high noon. You could easily write a really good story about him having some kind of change in his life and either taking up a new name or returning to, like, whatever his original name was. And you could totally do it in a way that respects the character, that respects the world, that doesn't break the player's immersion, doesn't just suddenly, oh, why is his name Joe now? That's like really cool, and you can handle it. You can handle it well. The lame thing to do would be to just, with no explanation, change his name. And then put out a blog post about it. What's so annoying about the blog posts is that, like, here's the thing with Blizzard, and that just annoys me, and I don't even play Blizzard games, but, like, every single minor action they take, they milk the hell out of it for PR points. Even things that I agree with, like this, like not naming characters after real people, changing McCree's name to something else to distance himself from this creepo. You make me want to disagree with it because you're always looking for like validation. It's so I hate this. I hate like just this habit of companies always looking for PR validation. And this is something that, from my observation, the Blizzard devs seem incredibly insecure. Not all of them, but there seems to be a chunk of them that just need validation and cannot handle criticism from anyone. And, you know, part of that is because part of the poor communication definitely lies on the management side, because, as was proven, management really does not protect its employees at all. But there is definitely a subsect of really obnoxious developers who refuse. People say, I've heard most of this from the WoW crowd, who say, like, for the last 5 years, World of Warcraft has been plagued by absolutely garbage systems. The last 2 expansions have been, they come out, there's the beta test, there's a new system in it that's completely central to the expansion. Players say, hey, there's a lot of problems with this, and there's going to be some issues in the future with it if it releases in this way. And Blizzard says, we hear you. We're listening. And then it releases, and then nothing changed. And it releases exactly as it was in the beta. And the player base has to put up with a bad system for like 6 months or more until Blizzard goes, oh, did you guys not like that? Well, tell you what, we're going to change the system to what you guys wanted in the first place. Aren't we so cool? Aren't we awesome? Aren't you grateful? And then every time the player base just lashes out because why are you just completely screwing up this game? The response is, you're toxic, you're harassing. And there's definitely harassment that is completely unwarranted that happens towards developers, and that's never okay. Stuff like sending death threats or getting personal, but that's not a lot of people. Those people exist, and they're bad, and employees should be protected from them. And I think in several cases, legal action should be taken against people who just want to issue threats against developers. Like, fuck those people. Legitimate threats, like I've heard some fucking crazy stories about, like, there was a guy he was a community manager for 2K Games, and someone sent him a picture of his. It was a picture of they'd printed out a photograph of his children, and defecated on it in a toilet. And they took a picture of that and sent it to him. You see that, and you're like, holy fuck. What? Like, no one should have to deal with that. That is borderline a threat, right? Getting someone's kids involved is like so over the line, I can't even imagine. And that constitutes, I think, a harassment that is significant enough to warrant legal action. No one should be subject to that. That's never okay. But a majority of the player base doesn't do that for any game. A lot of it is like, you know, maybe it's not as polite as they would like, but you're a professional in your field, and you're working on one of the biggest games in the world. Please grow a spine and be able to take criticism when people tell you that your systems are bad for 5 years. This is the frustration I've heard from World of Warcraft players. There's this, like, I can totally picture it. It seems like there is a portion of the team that anyone who criticizes them as being toxic, we get to ignore criticism, and I need constant validation. We need constant validation from people, so every single time we make any incremental change to the game, we're going to put out a blog post telling you about it and patting ourselves on the back for how good we are. When really, you know, I think really the adult, the mature thing to do is just, your left hand should never know what your right hand is doing. The much more people will appreciate it, works out better in the long run, because people, I think ultimately, if you just do things silently and you just make, like No Man's Sky is a great example. That game launched and it was a huge freaking disaster, not because of any malintent, or I don't think that like they meant to scam people. They were just in way over their heads. Everyone's seen the Internet Historian video, The Ungoodening of No Man's Sky. Great video. They were just in way over their heads. They were a little indie studio. They had no PR firm. It was just the leader of the team who admitted that he had like severe public speaking anxiety, and he would just say like, yeah, that's going to be in the game, because he just couldn't. He overpromised just because he's just so uncomfortable talking in public. And, there was no malintent there. And then, what they did is they just kept their heads down. They were getting so much heat. They just kept their heads down, and they worked on it. And they worked on it, and they worked on it. They worked on it for like 2 straight years. And then the game was good. And I hear people now, and they're like, yeah, No Man's Sky is actually like a pretty good game. Like, it's worth the investment. That is, and the thing is like, that, they never released a single statement about, we're just working on the game right now. They never said a thing. All they did was just, they kept their heads down, and they just worked on it. And I think that did well for them in the long run, because people were upset at the time because of the lack of communication. And then suddenly they drop this huge update that fixes a million things about the game, and people are like, oh, okay. And then that happens a couple times, and I think that Hello Games gained a lot of respect from the player base as a whole. Like, even if you don't like No Man's Sky, or any of you had a bad experience with it on launch and you got kind of burned by it, those people can now look at the developer and say, okay, you guys screwed up, but honestly, I can respect you for how you handled the situation. It will always be more respectable to just let your actions speak. Because you see the updates to No Man's Sky, you're like, wow, they really worked hard on this. They put in a lot of effort. These people legitimately care. As opposed to, hey guys, we're making another blog post because we're changing the name of one NPC. Guys, we swapped out one model in the game, and we changed their name. We changed a text string, and we swapped the model, guys. We hear you. At Blizzard, we're listening. Blizzard is a company built on Blizzard's core values. We've been striving. Let me see if I can come up with one of these PR statements on the spot. At Blizzard, we strive to fulfill our core values of empathy, inclusion, and making sure that every voice matters. And to move forward in that direction, we have decided that we are going to be changing we are going to be, you gotta be a little more, you gotta make it sound better. We are going to be changing and removing potentially harmful or unpleasant content that references real-life individuals in our game. It's been the past few weeks have been filled with anger, sorrow, and tears. And we hear you. God, can't you feel your organs hardening when I talk like that? It's like, God, shut up. Just fix it. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about what you have to say. I care about what you have to do. Please. Just shut up and fix it. That's all you need to do. That stuff pisses me off so badly. I'm thankful that I never got that invested in Blizzard, because I would probably be really emotional about it, honestly. I would probably be really upset. Because that stuff just really pisses me off. The lip service PR that's just trying to get points from people who are just looking for a statement, and they aren't going to check, because that's what it is. It's like, when the teacher comes around and they're like, oh, you're working on your work? You're like, yeah, I'm working on my work. And then they turn around and you're like, nope. I'm alt tabbing back to Tetris. That was my high school experience. And that stuff just I've experienced lip service my entire life, and at a certain point you just get sick of it, and you really don't want to hear people talk about like what I did wrong and I'm so sorry, and at some point you're like, just fix it. Please just fix it. I don't care at this point. Maybe I'm getting a little too personal. But yeah, I think maybe more people can relate to that than I realize. We have such a lip service world where people just try to cover up their behavior with an apology, and they don't do anything about it. On the same topic, sort of, speaking of Blizzard and Activision and blah blah blah, where the hell was it? California expands the lawsuit against Activision Blizzard. This from a few days ago. So the original lawsuit that kicked all of this off, pretty interesting. It is currently... Okay, so California, this one comes to us from Axios.com. Written by Megan... Oh, geez. Farokmanesh and Stephen Totilo. California has expanded its anti-discrimination lawsuit against Activision Blizzard, adding temporary workers to the female full-time employees of whom it is suing on behalf. So basically, at first it was only full-time employees who were suing, and then it expanded to include temporary employees, which is great, because companies can do a bunch of shady finagling with definitions that makes... you can basically be a full-time employee, but in full-time in all but name. And they can use that to justify paying you less, giving you less, stuff, gets less benefits. Here's the second, more interesting part. Alleges that the game maker has interfered with its investigation. So a copy reviewed by Axios specifically mentions that California's protections against anti-harassment... Yes, so temporary workers... So throughout the lawsuit, the word employees has been changed to workers. Great. Okay, that's good. So basically, there is evidence that there was direct interference with the investigation, namely through NDAs, which it is actually non-disclosure agreements. The purpose of them is to keep trade secrets. It's so you work for one company, they have this system, or they have this upcoming game, right? Pardon me. They have this upcoming game, and oh shit, they've got Kill Butt 2 coming out. Kill Butt 1 was huge. Kill Butt 2 is gonna light the world on fire. And they're expected to release it in so-and-so quarter. Well, they want you to sign an NDA so that you can't, if you get fired or you leave the company, you are not allowed to go tell someone else about it. For instance, because maybe they're a publicly traded company, and once they make the announcement, their stock is going to skyrocket. And you can go tell someone about that, and they can buy stock basically with, like, insider trading. That's one thing. It can also be just, please don't share our certain systems or things that we have in the works with other companies. It's to prevent other companies from, getting stuff that you don't want in terms of what you're working on. NDAs are not for keeping people from speaking to the law. They are not for preventing you from going to the police because you're being harassed, for instance. So the suit claims that this, NDAs requiring, has stymied its efforts through NDAs, requiring employees to speak with the company instead of contacting the DFEH, which is the Department of California, that is, California department that's the main accuser here, and its involvement with WilmerHale, a firm the game maker said will investigate misconduct issues. So yeah, that is not what an NDA is for. You are not supposed to use an NDA to basically force employees to whistleblow on themselves before they go to the state. So this directly interferes with their ability to investigate, prosecute, and remedy the discrimination. It alleges in part that documents related to investigations and complaints were shredded by human resource personnel. Now that is a big accusation. Shredding documents, destruction of evidence. I shouldn't have to say that it's a big deal. It's basically an immediate guilty. Because people with nothing to hide generally have nothing to fear. Assuming that that isn't an exact truism, I said generally. Sometimes, people don't have a right to know everything about you. However, if you are the subject of an investigation by a state department and you shred evidence related to that investigation, yeah, maybe why would you need to do that if you're innocent? What reason would you have to do that? So that is obviously very illegal, destruction of evidence. I don't know if it's exactly illegal or if it's different for a company, but yeah, it's a big bad. Of course, Blizzard denied it. Here's the thing is that, I listened to a couple other people talk about this, namely people more involved in the Blizzard stuff, like the channel Bellular, who do some really good news stuff. A couple, I think they're Irish? Yes, they're Irish. They're in Belfast, I think. Yeah, they're great. Couple of Irish guys, couple of Irish chaps. Just talking about games. I got a little games. I got a little Minnesota. Got a little Fargo. Now I'm making myself laugh. They were talking about the term shredding does not necessarily mean literal shredding, because not everything is physical now. It could be literally just deleting documents. So you can say, well, we didn't shred evidence because it wasn't physical. Yeah, there was a bunch of just really awful stuff about Blizzard that I could go on about. I could do a whole rant about how much QA and quality assurance testers are disrespected in the industry, and it's such a shame. It's such a shame that when a game comes out and it's super buggy, that people say, "Oh, QA didn't do their job." And listening to people who have worked in QA, just like most of the time, here's the thing: the people who do quality assurance, they are you. They are the customer. They're not part of the company. They're almost always another group that was hired out, like another company that is a third party company that gets brought in to do it. They're just normal people like you and I. They're just regular gamers. Their complaints are the same complaints you have. They see everything you do. They don't want to play that. They don't have a vested interest. Their payment is like completely divorced from how well the game does or how well the reviews are. They want the game to be as good as you do. And 10 times out of 10, I'm going to go that far, maybe 9 times out of 10, you never know, they see the bugs and they report them. And it's the developers who just choose not to act on it. QA deserves way more credit than they get. I've heard stories on, if you listen to the Castle Super Beast podcast, Wooly Madden, or of the Wooly Versus channel, who also, one host of the Castle Super Beast. He worked in QA testing for years, and he has a lot of really interesting stories and anecdotes, and he said one time that, honestly, he's seen a lot of projects where the QA team has been there the longest. People leave, they get fired, they quit, but the QA team is like, they stick with it, and they're on the game for the longest time, and they're the ones who care the most. And then they just get totally shit on and not even included in part of it's the dev team in some cases, and they get totally left to the wayside. And you hear this story that came out of Blizzard where the QA testers are paid so poorly. There was this story of this guy who said he had to drink coffee to suppress his appetite. He was working at Blizzard, one of the most dominant, relevant, historical companies in the highest earning. It's like Activision Blizzard, one of, if not, you could make an argument for being the heaviest hitter in the biggest entertainment industry in the world. He's working for them. And he has to live with 5 roommates because he can't make his rent with his salary. He had to drink coffee to suppress his appetite because he couldn't afford the food that was on the campus. And you listen to these stories and you're like, Jesus Christ, like take care of your people. Like, these are your people. And it makes me feel much more comfortable playing a game like Final Fantasy XIV, which I know, we can add that to the bingo card, honestly, of stuff that Tyken talks about all the time. But one of the things that I like so much about 14 is that I know for a fact that the staff on that game is treated well. Yoshida, the producer, the lead producer for the game, who led the entire relaunch back when the game initially flopped, and he's been the shepherd of the game ever since for the last 7 years. He said that Shadowbringers was a huge success, the last expansion. He said it was a huge success, and he made sure that the entire team of like 200 people are going to get their maximum bonuses for the cycle, for the release cycle. They're going to get the max bonuses. Because he knows that, like, the people who work in game development, especially if you're working on an MMO, like, you have to be crazy to work on an MMO. The people on the team are already dedicated enough. If you're working in this industry, if you're working on this game, you don't have to be told, you don't have to crack the whip to get these people to give it their all, right? Like, they care already. So it's his job, and he recognizes this as a producer, to now create an environment where the team is as comfortable as possible to just let them work. Just let them make the game, because they're going to do a good job. So, like, looking at your team and being like, I don't need you The last thing I need is for you to be worrying about whether or not you're going to make rent, or whether you can pay for food this week, or this month. All I want you to worry about is how hyped you are to work on this freaking game that's your dream job. And guess what? When you provide an environment like that is stable, that has stable release cycles, where the employees are taken care of, you end up with a better game. You end up in a game that is now on track to overtake World of Warcraft as the biggest MMO. And it freaking deserves it. It's so nice to see. It's the power of good leadership, really, because obviously everyone on the team does a great job, but Yoshida is the one your job as a leader is to facilitate the success of everyone underneath you, basically. And he knows when he went through the entire process of relaunching the game, which was like freaking absurd because you're remaking an entire MMO in like 2.5 years or something. When these games have like 5-year development cycles, you're doing it in half the time. And when he planned out every single member's schedule down to like the day, down to the hour, he said it took years off his life, which I believe. And he literally denied his employees overtime. When you hear that, you're like, well, denying overtime, that sounds bad. No. It's because they would come in, they would be like, I want to come in after hours to keep working on what I was doing today. And he would say, no, I need you to go home and I need you to sleep. I need you to go home, eat, sleep, get some rest, relax, come into work tomorrow on time. We're on a schedule. He's like, I've got the schedule. I've got the plan. If we stick to the plan, everything will work out. And that kind of like care, especially in the Japanese games industry, or just corporate culture in general, which is so infamous for overworking and allowing like voluntary overwork. It's usually not enforced, but it's like kind of pressured. It's pressured. And it's just like the thing to do is you just work yourself to the bone. The leadership and the empathy to be able to talk to your employee and say, no, I need you to take care of yourself. Don't do that. Is a very upstanding thing to do. And everything that Yoshida has demonstrated, everything that he's done and said in the last 7 years, the man gives like hundreds of hours of interviews every year. And he has displayed nothing but like class, basically. He seems like a genuinely really good guy who cares about his employees, cares about the game he's making, loves what he's doing, loves the player base. And with you have this confidence when you're playing the game that even when things are like, if something launches and it's kind of bad or it's messed up, you have the confidence that the developers actually have your best interest in mind. And it's kind of comforting to know that, like, okay, people who care are at the helm of this game. It's not going to get fucked up. They're not going to fuck it up. That is a very nice feeling. And it goes down to the very roots of how, the culture of the workplace. And you see that, you're like, and you see this incredible success story of like, man, there was not a single bad expansion for 14 for the game. Let's see, there was, how many have they had? They had launch, they had the vanilla game, Realm Reborn, which is a little shaky, but honestly, for that it's excusable because they made it in such a time crunch. Heaven's Word, which I've heard is amazing. I've not gotten there yet because I'm currently locked out from playing the game because I'm on a free trial, and there are too many people playing the game and I literally can't log in, and there's a new priority system because the servers are breaking because too many people are playing it. Heaven's Word, heard is amazing. Stormblood, heard it's amazing. Shadowbringers, heard it's legitimately one of the best JRPGs of the last 10 years. And you look at this game, Endwalker's looking great. You look at this game and you're like, all they're doing is churning out great content for the player base. And there's like this is a weird thing to reference. There's this passage in the Bible, in like the New Testament, where Jesus, he points at a tree and he says basically, a good tree will produce good fruit and a bad tree will produce rotten fruit. And the good expansions of 14 is like, it's a product of a good work environment. It starts at the roots. When you look at WoW and you look at like, man, the last like 5 years have just been shit in this game, and it feels like it's just decaying, like it's rotting from the inside out. The game is the end of the process, right? The process begins at the day-to-day in the office. And you're just seeing like, when you play the game, you're like, this is rotting. You're seeing the outside of the fruit. You're seeing it's gotten so bad the worms are now poking out, but they've been in there for a while, burrowing around. And it's always like, when you see these games launch and they're just super buggy, like Cyberpunk, buggy, fucked up, just like all these things, you're like, where was the care and the time? What happened to it? It probably wasn't laziness on the developer's part. Most game devs are not lazy. Most of them care a lot about what they do because they just love games. It's usually like the environment is bad. The environment is not conducive to making a good product. And then when you see a good game, sometimes you just see, like, I remember when Sonic Mania came out. I'm not even like a big Sonic fan. I'm not even really a Sonic fan at all. But I just remember watching footage of that game, and I just started smiling because you look at it and I just got this like warm feeling. I was like, wow, this thing was made with like so much love. You can feel the love just oozing out of every single pixel in this game. And then you find out the development history and like, oh, it was made by these fans who were two guys who were like huge Sonic fans, made fan games, super involved in the community. They got picked up officially to make a fully fledged Sonic game. And you're like, that makes total sense. Like, this was made with love and care, and you can feel it. And you play like little indie games, and you're like, the person who made this really cared about it. When you play like, I think one of the reasons Guilty Gear is so compelling is because it is so much a product of Daisuke Ishiwatari's vision. Like, he's the one dude who, he designs the characters. Well, he designs the gameplay. He designs the characters. He does all the concept art. He composes the music. He performs the music. What else? He writes the story. And like, there's so many people on that team, but you can just tell that like, fuck, like he cares so much about about his game. He cares so much about his series. It just shines through, and people pick up on that. They pick up on like passion and love in products. There's a quote from Disney, I think. Was it Disney, or I think it was Walt Disney. He said basically like, people, something along the lines of like, people know quality when they see it. People know quality when they see it, even if they can't like explain it, even if they can't articulate it in the exact words to explain why they like it so much. But you can just tell when you're good, you're good. You know, people just kind of have a sense. Kind of goes to like that thing that I was talking about maybe a few episodes ago, or I forget when, about like, you see a trailer for a game, or like at the opening, like an opening sequence, and you're like, this game is like, it was the little segment I had about like making a statement. The game is making a statement. It's bold. Like, you play a game and it feels bold. What's the last game that I remember? Guilty Gear is a good example, but Banjo-Kazooie is a good one. Banjo-Kazooie is a game where it's like, it is so itself, and it's so just like, it's itself, and it goes hard from the first second. And it's like, yeah, it's Banjo-Kazooie, dude. And it's like, you don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to think about like, oh, is this, what kind of a, is this game good? There's no even inkling of any kind of hollowness or cynicism in it. I've been talking for a while. I have something to do in a few hours, and I need to rest my voice. I've gotten a little raspy. So I'm going to be calling it a day here. We've been talking for close to an hour. Thank you so much, everyone who's been watching the videos, who's been listening to the podcast. Leave any questions you have below. I'll definitely read them on the next episode. I love talking to you guys. This stuff is super fun. I don't know how to end the podcast. Goodbye.